Hello everybody, and welcome back to another World of Tanks video. Today we're going to take a look at the Tiger II. I'm going to do a little review on the Tiger II, in fact. It's not something I do a lot. I don't think my opinion is that important, but I see something in this tank that a lot of people don't, or at least I think I see something in this tank that a lot of people don't, and I enjoy it a lot, and I want to share my knowledge with you, so to say. Anyway, the way we're going to do this, or I'm going to do this, is I'm going to show you some statistics first, and then afterwards I'm going to show you some gameplay, where I hoping to show what the strength of this tank is and why it's so amazing. Anyway, let's get to the statistics first. So to compare the stats of the Tiger II, I'm going to use tanks.gg, which is a website where you can very easily compare the statistics of tanks. I'm going to compare the Tiger to the OHO, the Caernarvon, the IS-3 and the T-32. Now, the first, running through these stats, I'm going to go quite quickly because nobody really wants to listen to me talk for half an hour straight, so here we go. The view range is quite nice. It's 390. It's not quite as good as the Caernarvon and the T-32, but 390 gets the job done. It's also quite significantly better to the IS-3, which is generally considered the strongest heavy tank at Tier 8. The armor of the tank is nice. It has a lot of frontal hull armor. It isn't quite as angled as it is on the IS-3, but it is a little bit easier to angle and use intelligently, so to say. It must be said that the lower plate of the Tiger II is quite weak. The turret armor is on paper is the thickest or the thinnest of all the heavy tanks. No, definitely not thickest. But to be honest, 185 millimeters is enough, and it doesn't have any glaring weak spots like a plate on top of the turret or a gigantic cupola or something like this. So it's a reliable turret. It does very well right up until the point that it doesn't. So tier 9 and tier 10 high penetration guns the turret has trouble with, but up until then it's actually quite nice. Moving on to the movement, so the maneuverability of the tank. It has the highest top speed together with the IS-3. However, the IS-3 has significantly more horsepower per ton. Actually, the Tiger II has the lowest horsepower per ton, but then its soft stats are actually quite nice, which in practice means that this is, well, pretty much heavy tank standard. It's not very fast, but if it gets a long enough run up, it can definitely hit its top speed. So when you need to go somewhere in a hurry, you can actually go there faster than the snail's pace, but don't really count on outsprinting anybody. Which brings us actually to the best part of the Tiger II, which is the DPM and actually the gun in general. The DPM on the Tiger II is very nice. It's only trumped by the OHO, which gets a higher DPM with its 10 centimeter gun. However, the 10 centimeter gun doesn't actually have any premium ammunition, so if you on occasion get in the tier 10 match, it can be very nice to have the premium ammunition ready for you. But well, the DPM is better on the OHO. The penetration on the Tiger II is actually, well, it's strictly technically speaking not quite as good as the Caernarvon, as the Caernarvon has 1 millimeter extra. But to be honest, it is the joint best with the IS-3 and the Caernarvon if we're going to neglect that little 1 millimeter of extra penetration on the Caernarvon. The damage is Joe average. It's not really super high, it's not really super low. The shell velocity is however very high, which makes shooting down range very easy. You don't have to give quite as much lead, and on top of that it is a very accurate gun. It is by far the most accurate. It is the most accurate compared to all these heavy tanks in which I compare them to. The Caernarvon gets close with 0.31. But the Caernarvon is a bit of an oddball out as far as these heavies go, and if we compare them for instance to the IS-3, which has 0.38, it's very good. The aim time of the Tiger II is actually also very nice, only trumped by the Caernarvon and the T-32. However, the soft stats are also quite nice on this tank, which in practice means that the tank really doesn't take long to aim, and when it does fully aim it can really shoot easily downrange, but also you can take snapshots quite easily, and I'm just going to show you this now. I have a little bit of gameplay set up ready. In this game I initially used the Tiger as a heavy tank, and then after a little bit I can show you just why this gun is so amazing. So I'll stop teasing you and roll the replay. So this whole statistics of this having a very nice gun is of course very well and good, but at the start of every match a top tier heavy tank has to do top tier heavy things, which involves getting up front and getting into close range to duel the other heavies. So that's what I'm initially going to do. I'm going to make my way up the K line here towards K2, K3, that sort of area, near this church or castle, I don't know really what to call it. I think it's a church. Anyway, whatever. I'm going to drive up there and I'm going to duel the other heavies that are there. It's important for a heavy to do this, I believe, even if it's not really the super best thing for this tank. And this is a bit of a controversial one, I suppose, because generally the Tiger II is viewed as the generic heavy. It has nice armor if you use it well. It has a nice gun, nice punchy gun, and it gets this at the cost of having not too great of a mobility. But as I just mentioned, the soft stats on the gun actually not that bad. I take a snapshot at this T10, but on the move it's not even this gun is accurate enough to pen the T10 when just well, taking this willy-nilly shot, so to say. It was just a little bit too far away and didn't have time to aim, didn't bother to aim. So he puts a shot into me and I don't put a shot into him. Not the greatest start, but it's time to get into position and go do my heavy tank things here at the Abbey. First thing I'm going to do is check if there's any tanks around the corner here, and I see my counterpart on the enemy team, which is the Tiger II. I'm going to wait here for a little bit. I suspect that is actually not the top gun, but I'm not entirely certain. There's the Oni. Take a snapshot. Unfortunately, I bounce off of his turret. I probably should have aimed for the hull, but when I saw him, I only had one chance to shoot, and that was what I did. Now, this Oni has the derp gun, and I noticed this. I really see that this Oni as an easy target now, because I don't expect him to be able to pen the front of my armor. So 700 pounds armor, 700 pounds damage is very nice. Now I'm going to take a quick look here to see where I was penned. I don't really see it quite quickly. Unfortunately, he does actually manage to pen me here, and I believe I actually look what happened. And what happened here is that I showed just a little bit too much of my side armor, and he was able to put a shot into there. So a very unfortunate way to lose a lot of health, and I must be completely honest here as well. The reason I rolled out the way I did is because I wanted him to bounce from my front plate. I'm currently working on one of the missions, and bouncing a lot of damage is one of the necessary stuff. It's the Heavy Tank 15 mission. Get a chance to snap a shot into the rear of that tank, which is where this tank sort of starts to shine. You can take these snapshots in the Tiger II and get away with it. Roll around the corner, very quickly shoot, and you can actually relatively, at this kind of range, you can hit soft or weak spots. I deliberately track him here to get a little bit of assistance damage, and then the second he dies I'm going to drive forwards. I waited here with driving forwards because I'm suspecting that there are tank destroyers at D4, or at least tanks there, because there aren't actually any tank destroyers left on the enemy team, but there weren't any to start with, but I'm expecting there to be tanks. Now I notice that the other flank has collapsed, so I'm falling back. And this is where the Tiger II really starts to get super duper powerful, because I've got this very accurate gun, I've got some very nice armor, even if my lower plate is not the greatest in the world. And, well, they can't really touch me from here. My lower plate is covered, and I can just take my time, take some shots here and there, and that would simply not have been possible with the likes of an IS-3 or T-32. They don't have the accuracy to take shots like that. Now the Carnarvon might have, but the Carnarvon doesn't have the armor to take the hits, which we are definitely going to get, because we're spotted here. It's I do still have cover from the hill to my left, so it's not that I'm in a very bad position as far as artillery goes, but I do drive a bit too far forward here in retrospect, but I quite quickly recognize my mistake and fall back. All I have to do here is wait and let these enemies come to us. Our positioning is quite nice and I want to keep them at medium to long range. The kind of range where I can accurately hit them and they cannot accurately hit me, let alone hit weak spots on my tank. So there we have the first bounce. That's a 110mm gun hitting me and doing nothing. Unfortunately I bounced there, but to be honest that was the kind of shot, if that would have penned, it would be one of the classic examples of why that this tank is so powerful in this location. I can just sit here and take the hits. I work my way in this corner, hoping to get a bit more cover from the artillery. I don't really know what this T-62 or the Type 62 is trying to do here. He's never going to pen me. It's just not going to happen. Now this Panther has gotten a shot in, but I highly suspect he's actually using APCR, because that shot really shouldn't have penned me as easily as it did. The one problem I have here is that there's this STA-2 at my flank. He could quite easily do a lot of damage to me. So I have to wait having to wait for the moment that I can actually drive out and take out this STA-2. Unfortunately, he has still quite got a lot of health left, but I'm able to take a shot at him, and he bounces at me, taking damage along the way. You see, I'm keeping a close eye on this STA-2 because I really don't like him being there. Now I noticed that none of the enemies are really seeming to get out of their cover, so I get a moment to turn the turret around and very quickly snap a shot at the back of the STA-2. And that's the soft stats of the Tiger II doing their thing. This would not have been possible in other tanks, in other heavy tanks of this tier. An IS-3 would simply not have been able to take that shot reliably. The same can be said about T-32 and the OHO. The Carnarvon would have been able to, probably, but would not have been able to bounce shots quite as easily. Unfortunately the Panther gets another shot into us. I think that was actually my lower plate. I was getting a little bit greedy for this VK4502A, but to be honest I think that 100 damage was worth it. I'm not going to hold back a 320 alpha damage shot on a top tier tank just because I might get 150 damage in return. That's effective training, I would say. There we go, another nice example of why the accuracy of this gun is so nice. And in this kind of a position I really feel almighty in the Tiger II. There's so little they can do to stop me here. Now the Panther is still there, but I'm kinda counting on my allies to, or this IS-2 on my flank to help deal with him. And on top of that I'm, as I mentioned, not going to stop using my gun just because there might be a Panther that shoots at me. There we go, the Panther actually drops down and I'm going to roll towards him and try to do some damage. Some easy damage there, and this time he's not able to get away from me or pen his shot. Probably a little bit of panic of this great hunking chunk of metal screaming at him. We're still a very nice, very strong heavy tank, and because our frontal armor is that nice and our top speed is nice, you can really pull off some monster rams in this tank if you get the right situation. I was kind of hoping to ram him there, as you might have noticed, but the KV-4 got him, I believe. So it's really just a mob up at this point. I don't really do that much anymore, but one thing that is on my mind currently is Heavy Tank Mission 15 for the second set. I need to do 8,000 damage, I need to get 8,000 points of damage blocked by armor or damage received in this game. And I don't actually have the UI up now, but it's right up there. I'm almost there, so I'm going to try and get as much as possible out of this game. And I'm secretly hoping that this OI is firing AP out of the howitzer. Doesn't look like he is, but take out the OI, that's another 200 points. Take 200 more points of damage, which is fine. I'm completely fine with taking 200 damage. Now I want him to shoot me here. I want to both kill him and do the damage. Unfortunately I'm not able to do the damage, but I do again bounce a little more extra damage there. So let's have a look at the stats, shall we? It was not my Heavy Tank Mission 15, and I'm going to show you just how close I got there. in a little bit, but first let's have a look at the rest of the stats. Now this was an ace tanker for me. It was the Confederate medal. I spread the damage around lovingly. I had the steel wall because, as you might have noticed, I bounced quite the amount of shots there. One from the Tiger II and one from the Oni from close range, but the rest of them were more or less long range shots. And eventually they just gave up shooting at me in general. I must say this Panther here really did put up a good fight. These little bee stings were quite annoying, and I had to adjust my player just a little bit. Well, on top of the Confederate, the steel wall of course, and the high caliber, for what was just a little bit shy of 4000 damage, got 1232 base experience, which boiled down to 1848 experience with my premium account. I fired a grand total of 17 shots, of which 15 hit and 13 penetrated. A few of these shots were really snapshots, and that's what I like to do in this tank as well. Just take these blind shots when I get the opportunity to do so. Not too much damage was done for more than 300 meters, but a lot of it was done at quite long ranges for heavy tank standards. The engagement I had when I was towards the end of the match, or I suppose the middle a little bit, when I was driving away from the Abbey towards our cap, that was pretty much the ideal situation for this tank. Medium to long ranges, able to snipe at enemy tanks which are just not capable of penning you in return. Was also able to get into a position where artillery couldn't hit me. And yeah, that's just the place you want to be. And you get these kind of games. And I do feel that in that situation, in that specific situation where you're at medium to long range, you can hide your lower plate, you can be safe from artillery, you're next to invincible in this tank. It is so powerful and you are able to put down so much damage. The one thing you haven't really seen in this gameplay, but yeah, you can kind of imagine how that goes, is using the DPM of this tank to fight other tanks which have a lot slower reload. So the training 2 shots for 1, that sort of thing. You've probably seen this before. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll see you for the next one.